Hello everyone, and welcome to another Daily Muppet. It's been an interesting last week over the weekend, everything that's gone on and everything that's happening right now. So there's a fair bit to discuss. The first thing, which kind of popped up just as I was getting ready to do this video, was David Ornstein saying that United have made an offer for Christian Eriksen on a free. The interest had come out a few months, was it a month ago, something like that, maybe a few weeks. I know that United have been interested in him for a long time. We discussed it a fair bit on the podcast with Phil Brown yesterday. Talked about why it would be a very good signing, a very nice signing, someone I would love to see United bring in. So David Ornstein says we made an offer for him, that he hasn't decided, that it's not agreed, but the offer is made. I think there's a good chance of that. It makes a lot of sense to me. I would absolutely sign Christian Eriksen. He's one of my favorite players of all time in the Premier League. Extremely hardworking, great attitude, incredibly talented. He does everything you'd want. He'd be familiar with the type of style of play that Ten Hag plays. To me, he's an ideal rotation with Bruno, who's also flexible, and like Juan Mata, where he can play on the right and all of that as well. He could fit into a lot of different systems. And, when Bruno is not doing well, we've seen that. When Bruno doesn't play well, we have a lot of problems because we don't have any other real creators. And even if you bring in someone like De Jong, you still don't have that main creator, especially in a Ten Hag 4-2-3-1 system that he'll probably play and bring based on the profile of the signings we're looking at. Christian Eriksen is an incredible creator as well. He's an awesome passer. There's just so many positives to this one. It makes a lot of sense. And I want to discuss kind of my personal opinion on all the targeted positions. I would like to see, given that we've now missed out on a striker, and let's just talk about that before we move on to De Jong, that there's been reports and we've heard that they're essentially not going to buy a striker now this summer after not getting Darwin Nunes. If you're not getting a striker, I would prefer someone like Christian Eriksen to signing another forward on a free and use the entire budget to shore up the midfield and the back. But Eriksen is flexible. He can fit in on the right. He can fit in up top and allow you to play in a lot of different positions. Maybe it pushes Donny van de Beek into a purely attacking role where he can play as a false nine or also play off of one of the sides in different formations. So hopefully they can do that. I think it makes sense. I think it's between United and Spurs, but I can't see him. I mean, I guess United can't really offer him a bona fide starting 11 spot either. But they can offer a lot of games. I don't know that the Spurs system under Conte has as much room for a player like Eriksen as a 10, but I don't honestly know. And they've got all these players they've bought. They just bought Basuma, Højbjerg, Bentancur. There's not that much, with his three at the back, there's not that much space in the midfield for him at Spurs, is there? So he'd be rotation as well. So, he's already been there. He's already played under Conte too. He's familiar with Ten Hag after he rehabbed with Ajax after his heart incident. So I think that there's definitely something in this potentially. And it would be a very nice signing that I would like to see United to make in this case. I think it would be very sensible. So, that's that one. If I hear anything, further on it, I'm trying to keep up with what's happening. If I hear anything further on it, I'll let you know. Maybe I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll find out ahead of if he's accepted. Maybe I'll hear about that before it's done, but he hasn't yet. So let's see what happens there. And then let's talk about Frenkie De Jong. And, it's a little frustrating, this situation, because I don't want to rant more. I don't want to be negative. It's not like my platform or what I try to do. But, we've put off deals for the Frenkie De Jong situation. We've put them off. Liverpool signed Diaz in January. Liverpool signed Carvalho. Liverpool have signed Darwin Nunes. Liverpool are looking at a midfielder. Manchester City have signed Alvarez. Holland, they're on the verge of or looking to finalize Calvin Phillips before July 1st. They're looking at Cucurella, likely to sign him as well. Tottenham have Bentancur, Kulusevski. They're closing in on Spence. They've agreed a fee for Basuma. Chelsea haven't made a signing, but of course they couldn't do anything until recently. Arsenal have signed small, Marquinhos from Brazil and a keeper from US, but that shouldn't be the standard, right? Arsenal, keeping up with Arsenal's business, shouldn't be the standard. It's frustrating. We've put everything on the back burner for this De Jong thing. And I can say a few things with certainty. Barcelona do want to sell. They do want to sell. They want to sell Frenkie De Jong. They still need to get rid of some players. But it is a sticky situation. I mentioned it a week ago, and then everything kind of went to crap. I said a week ago that I was fearful of them putting things on the back burner for this deal as they have for so long. Eriksen's a free signing. I don't think it required the negotiations and the funds, right? It's a free signing. I mentioned the danger of allowing clubs like Liverpool to come in for your other targets while you're putting things on the back burner. And I mentioned the honeypot situation, how Barcelona had sort of drawn United in with this talk of something like 60 million, something like that. And let's see, 60 million and then 60, 65, and then now it's 100 million, or it was 80, but it's become a lot more, and it sounds like it's a lot more for him, and that they're going to ask for a lot more for him, or that in the negotiations that started, they had increased their initial ask to over 100,000 to 100 million euros or so, and that they wanted a total package that would reach that. I don't think that was ever going to happen. And initially, United were looking at 60. That was what they wanted, 60 million euros for him, and they thought a deal around that range would be viable, but it seems like it's become more expensive, and it's dragged on and on and on. And it's not just United to blame in that Barcelona have definitely messed around with it, but at the same time, this is a consequence of the way that things are run and the way that things are happening. If you're putting other things on the back burner, you get stuck in these situations. Now what? Now we've missed out on a big forward. Everyone knows we can spend money. I'm not saying they should go pay 80 to 100 million, because I didn't think they should in the first place. But at the same time, the club wanted a deal done this week. They were confident. There's still time. The only issue is price. And it's kind of a shame that it seems stuck. I think that it's hard to say what to do now because it's dragged on for so long. You'd like them to put the money on the table and say, here's 70 plus 10. Accept it right now, or we have to move on. But who do we move on to? Who do we go on to next? I don't believe totally that there are alternates. They've put all the cards in on this. And now we're a little bit beholden to Barcelona running the ring around it. There's still a good chance this could be done and should be done. But it should be progressing solidly this week. If it's not progressing solidly this week, if you don't see some reports coming out in the next 2 days, I personally would start to get very worried. And it's hard to always put a time on things, but you have to think about it logically for a moment. After this, Frenkie De Jong's going on vacation, going on holiday. He wouldn't be due to return until after July 1st. He'd be due to return to Barcelona after July 1st. Barcelona need to, if they were needing to sell at all, it would have been before June 30th. So this is the window, the end of the internationals, to get a deal set up, to get it arranged, and then have him join up for preseason after July 1st. if they don't sell, then they never needed to sell. And that's the honeypot situation I was describing. And so you kind of have to put the screws to them this week and say, look, this is it. But again, I get it. The problem is, where's your alternative? I still think they get it done. The club are apparently confident from everywhere I've heard, and including some people, when we did the podcast with Phil Brown yesterday, he has good sources. The club were confident. We expect it to get done. But there is a time factor here where you need to start seeing things happening this week. It should be a decisive week for the Frenkie De Jong thing. So there's no need to panic it, but it's not great when you see, with the offer and Eriksen, them also saying De Jong is the top target, but it has a way to run. Why? Why does it have a way to run still? Now, is that new information? Maybe not. Maybe that's just the information that's been there from last week, right? Sometimes that's what happens, a nothing update. They just repeat what they have to say as an update on a situation that's ongoing. But maybe, if things don't progress this week, then there's been a setback. So, I would really watch in the next day or two, and it'll be very telling as to where things go. So, moving on from that situation, there's no striker. The Antony interest is real. There is definitely an interest in Antony. It's not progressed to the point of offers and agreements and all of that. But it is real. And United are interested in him. Ten Hag is interested in him. The first time I tweeted that was March 3rd. When they were in just the initial interviews, I heard that if he came to United, he would be interested in bringing Antony as to solve the right wing issue. I have concerns about that, in that he's going to be 50 million euros or so, at least. I think the initial talk was 60. I think that would be a bit too much. But if you look at the plan for the summer, that Nunes, De Jong, Timber could easily become Antony, De Jong, Timber. It's an interesting situation, but you think about it for a moment as well. If you bring in Antony and you've made an offer for Eriksen, then you've got a lot of attackers. I mean, you have a lot. You have a lot of things to solve. And there's been reports over the weekend that Pelistri was set to get a look in preseason before any decision was made about his future. So, which I'm a big fan of. I would really like them to do that. So you've got then Rashford, Martial, Elanga, Ronaldo, Pelistri, Bruno, Eriksen, Donny van de Beek, all who play in attacking positions. And then you're looking at adding another one to there that's not a striker. It seems like a lot to add that's not a striker. My thought on this, what's possible, is if they can get De Jong in, get into preseason, Antony wouldn't necessarily need a preseason, is the benefit, to work into Ten Hag's system and to get going. You could leave that decision till late on whether you want to buy him or not. You could look at him as a last signing, and that's what I would think. Evaluate Pelistri and Ahmad in the preseason. See if you're bringing Eriksen in. See what happens, and then you could bring in Antony after that. Especially if you're making that free signing for Eriksen and leaving some money available, and it gives you time to. Oh, I forgot. I didn't even mention Martial, but it gives you a chance to look at Martial and see if you can sell him as well to raise more money. So it's an interesting situation. Other names that are worth mentioning, my understanding, are still, I mentioned Matthias Nunes from Sporting. I don't know that they're serious, but it's worth mentioning as another midfield profile. Malacia from Feyenoord, I still would keep an eye on that. Straight replacement for Alex Telles. And then Dumfries. There's been some stories coming out about Dumfries. I think I mentioned it on the podcast or in the last video or somewhere, but I can't put that one to bed. I've been looking into it, trying to see if there's anything real in it, and I can't say it's not. I'm not a huge fan of it. Unfortunately, I'm not a huge fan of it. My concern is if something goes off with Timber, that they might choose Antony and Dumfries, and I'm not sure that that's a good decision personally. But it makes kind of sense there as well. So it's another one to watch. If you look at, after not going for Nunes, if there's a lot of money available, for the different positions that have need, then you could say De Jong, Eriksen, Timber, Malacia. But then, there's probably 3 or 4 options in each of these areas to look at. Obviously, Pau Torres. There's nothing seemingly advanced with the other ones yet, but I would definitely keep an eye on those names, but especially Malacia and Dumfries, in addition to De Jong, Eriksen, Antony, and Timber. I think those are 2 names worth watching. The fullbacks, I heard from very early on, they wanted to solve, and so it makes sense to me that there's a lot of talk around fullbacks. The name Vitinha came out. Again, I've been talking about how maybe looking in Portugal for these midfielders. The name Vitinha came out from Record and actually from all of the Portuguese journalists, and they said a club is looking at potentially triggering his 40 million clause. I have to look at what type of player he is. I thought he'd be, whereas Nunes has played more defensive midfielder, I think Vitinha is very much a box-to-box. So someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but, whereas Nunes has played a lot of defensive midfielder, 1,000 minutes apparently, so he could probably partner De Jong in a pivot. I don't see Vitinha doing that. So if you know more about him, let me know in the comments, but I don't think that makes sense. So he would have to be as an alternate to Frenkie De Jong then, and so I'm not sure of that. And the other reason I don't necessarily want to talk about him too much is that he was strongly linked to Liverpool, and I don't want to get into that again. And that could be, again, pulling us into a deal there. But, the names are running out. There's obviously nobody of a quality of Frenkie De Jong, so it makes sense to stick on it. It'd be a huge, amazing signing to get done, especially, look, if you had Frenkie De Jong, Christian Eriksen, and Timber, I'd actually be happy with that window. It's not enough, but it's a huge improvement in many areas. I think I'd like to get Malacia in too. But then next year, you could really focus on just the striker situation, maybe a right winger and maybe a goalkeeper, but depending on what happens with Dean Henderson. So I'd actually be happy with it. I'd actually be quite happy with that window even. But it's all really reliant on getting De Jong in. If they feel confident on Timber, here's the one way you can look at it if you want to be positive on this situation. If they feel confident on Timber, if they feel like they could make a deal for Antony, if they want him, if they feel like they have a deal lined up for Eriksen and he will choose them, then you could spend as much time as you want on Frenkie De Jong. Obviously not as much time as you want because you need it in by preseason, but you could. You could spend the time you want on Frenkie De Jong because the other deals are kind of there. And as I've said, they have moved ahead. They had moved ahead with Timber. They have a deal kind of lined up. I don't know. There's a story about him maybe not wanting to come, and maybe that's why Antony and Dumfries maybe as an alternate kind of plan to Timber, getting someone in from Ajax. But they're there, and if they feel confident on some of these other deals, then maybe it's not such an urgent situation on De Jong. Until now, this week still becomes decisive because you need to move forward before the holidays. You need to get him in, and you need him in for preseason as a key part of the team. So it makes sense, and they could be lining these up, all of them, so that as soon as the De Jong domino falls, they can move ahead with Timber, they can move ahead with Malacia, they can move ahead with Eriksen, and get just all of those in at once. And that would on its own be a very nice summer. So there's always the possibility of that if I'm being optimistic at the moment, which I am trying to be. So the next couple of days will be decisive. I talked about why all these Dutch players, why all these Ajax players, and the simple reason is they're going to be familiar with Ten Hag, they're going to work their way in easily, and they can be convinced to come to United. It's going to be hard to do that for a lot of players now in the current situation this summer. By next summer, that may be totally different, and may be able to go for the big guns again. But this summer, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to bring people in, the bigger names and things like that. So it kind of makes sense. Personally, I'd be happy with something like, Eriksen, Timber, De Jong, Malacia, and leaving the forwards till next year. Letting the kids have a chance, but lining up a deal for Antony is smart as well. If you lose out on Timber, then I guess you might as well go throw money at the attacking position too. So we'll have to see what happens in the next few days. I'll keep you updated. Definitely, I might do a video again tomorrow and Thursday, depending on what happens, as I'm waiting on a few things to hopefully come out, and hopefully some more information that I can pass along that's a bit more definitive this week, as things should really get into gear after, Holland's final game is today. Timber's not in the squad, which is one we'll see if there's anything in that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think of how things are going, and I'll see you in the next video.